Fantasy Football Factory Week 10. We got the King of the South, Mincy. We got Moody on the sticks. I am Stephen Che. We are, as always, brought to you by DraftKings. Football fans, want to up your game day experience? My partners at DraftKings have a brand new way to play daily fantasy with the Pick 6 app. All new customers who play just $5 are going to get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Use code FANTASY, FANTASY, only on the DraftKings Pick 6 app. It's super easy. You just pick at least two players and see if they'll have more or less of a stat. More or less than 1.5 passing touchdowns. More or less than 40.5 rushing yards. More or less than half an interception. You lock them in and you compete against others to win a shot at huge cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now with code FANTASY. Only at the DraftKings Pick 6 app. The crown is yours. Mincy, we have a lot to talk about fantasy-wise. Monday night, the big story, the Bucs blowing that game, not going for two. I hate the timeout before that at 33 seconds. That's irrelevant. The big story from that game, not only the reemergence of Travis Kelce, but DeAndre Hopkins, unbelievable, incredible game from him. After a week and a half of being traded, he now becomes, or I should ask, is he a legitimate wide receiver one in fantasy?
I think he's a low one and a high two already. The target share's there. He's got good size. So they look for him in the red zone. Had 2 touchdowns. I mean, I think he's a guy you can roll with, and we're going to get to it, but his pricing is not caught up to his value yet. So definitely a guy you got to be looking at this week.
Yeah, it's tough to. I mean, it pained me to see it because against my team, but the throw he had on 3rd and 8 to Hopkins in traffic, that was just an absolutely perfect throw while he's getting hit. Like, that's a guy he already trusts, and you saw him in the post game. He's like, DeAndre Hopkins is almost getting choked up being asked, like, what is it like to play with a guy like this? He's a guy who has not had good quarterback play throughout his career. So for him to finally land with, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, we could see some fireworks here, which is a pretty scary sight. Moody, what do you think about Hopkins' value moving forward?
Well, I actually heard Patrick Mahomes say something very interesting in the postgame, which was anytime he saw DeAndre Hopkins one-on-one, he was confident that he was going to win and he was going to get him the ball. And I think that right now defenses, you're just not going to be able to go man-to-man, one-on-one with him. Like if he beats you, Mahomes is going to go to him. And Mahomes has needed that type of receiver because Travis Kelce's lost a step, let's be honest. And he needs someone that he can trust in those situations. And he already showed pretty big trust in him at moments in that game. That play you just alluded to a moment ago. I think this is a big boost. I think he is a wide receiver one moving forward. He's proven to us time and time again throughout the course of his career that he has been a wide receiver one. Now he has the best quarterback he's ever played with. Understand he's a little bit older, but why wouldn't he be a viable receiver moving forward? I do have him kind of in that same range as Mintz, a low-tier wide receiver one, but the upside is there, and their chemistry should continue to grow moving forward.
I think he's a top 10 wide receiver fantasy-wise moving forward, and that is a low wide receiver one, but I think his upside is like top 5. Like Moody said it with the one-on-one coverage. Like there was a play in the red zone, I believe it was a second touchdown catch, where he's just one-on-one against Josh Hayes, who is the 4th or 5th cornerback at best, and he's playing due to injury. But I saw that in real time and called it out. I was like, well, this is a touchdown. Like, he has a two-way go. They don't have safety help over the top. That's close enough to the line of scrimmage to affect this. Like, it's a touchdown, and then seconds later it was thrown. So DeAndre Hopkins, watch out if you're playing a guy with DeAndre Hopkins. That's going to be a tough assignment. Let's move on. Let's talk about another top receiver, CeeDee Lamb, who not only is nicked up with what appears to be an AC joint issue, something I am familiar with. He's going to be questionable for this Sunday, but he's also going to be without Dak Prescott, who is now on IR. He's going to miss a couple weeks with a hamstring issue. Mincy, what does this do to a lot of people's wide receiver one or wide receiver two, depending on how you drafted this season? Typically, one of the top wide receivers in fantasy, CeeDee Lamb. How does this affect his value moving forward?
I mean, I think I've got him downgraded to top 10 to top 15 from like top 2 or 3. Because when you look at it, Cooper Rush, game manager, I mean, CeeDee Lamb's still an elite player, but him and Dak have just such a good chemistry. I mean, it's just like that's one of those things. You see it when you watch him play. He catches so many balls and gets so many targets. And, you talk so much about Dak on this podcast. He always throws for a ton of yards.
Yep.
especially at home. And I don't think you can expect Cooper Rush to throw for over 200 yards a game.
So you're saying, top 10, top 15. We got in most standard fantasy leagues, we're talking 5 weeks left in the regular season. Dak's going to miss, the next 4. Who would you rather have the rest of the way, CeeDee Lamb or DeAndre Hopkins?
DeAndre Hopkins is Patrick Mahomes throwing him the football, not Cooper Rush.
Yeah, I agree with that. Moody, where do you see CeeDee Lamb's value?
Well, as a Cowboys fan, I've watched a lot of snaps with CeeDee Lamb. And I'll tell you what, he has some horrible body language at times. He had some moments with Dak. He had some moments with Dak where he was unhappy. It was pretty visibly clear. And Dak can tolerate that. How is he going to be towards Cooper Rush? And I actually have a concern here that CD may bow out a little bit. He may just that AC joint, he may end up missing a week or two. I'm legitimately concerned that he just doesn't give 100% effort here moving forward. And the other thing that's kind of my hot take is I think the Cowboys have to see Trey Lance at some point. Over these next 4 weeks, you need, especially if Cooper struggles these first couple games, you need to throw Trey Lance out there and just find out what you have. Because I have no clue, to be honest. I mean, it's truly a question mark, but I think that he does have more upside than Cooper Rush. And I would be shocked if the Cowboys don't run him out there after 2 games. I kind of expect to see that. But again, there's just a lot of question marks around him right now. And I have CD actually downgraded maybe a little bit more than you guys do. Because Cooper was looking a lot to the tight ends whenever he came back into the game. He wasn't really looking on the outside. I understand CD was beat up, but he really wasn't throwing to many of the receivers on the outside. He was looking over the middle. I have serious concerns about this Cowboys offense, even more than I already did.
Yeah, the AC joint specifically, so that's, in your shoulder, and it's not going to affect you. Like, if you're sitting and standing still, like, you're not going to feel it unless you have to raise your arm or something like that. But if you're engaged, if you get press coverage and you have to beat that, you are feeling it. If you have to lift your hands for a catch, you are feeling that. So I do think it is a pain tolerance thing, but it is going to limit his effectiveness. And I don't know what grade the AC joint sprain is. The higher grade it is, the worse it is, and maybe it's a grade 1. I had a grade 1, at some point this year. That's going to be difficult to play receiver with, especially, Dak gets a lot of shit. But if Cooper Rush is in the game and he's not putting the ball on the money exactly where CeeDee Lamb needs it, when he's, straining to make catches, I think it could get ugly pretty quick in Big D. So, yeah, I like the Trey Lance take. Finally, we got to talk about Mr. 1-1. Christian McCaffrey appears to be making his return this weekend against the Bucs. How do we feel about him moving forward? I would expect he's going to be on some type of snap count. They're not going to overload him, obviously coming off a big injury with his calf.
Tendonitis in his calf.
Both calves.
And Achilles.
Yes. How do you view Christian McCaffrey moving forward the rest of the year? 5 weeks left in the regular season, and then obviously fantasy playoffs.
Well, I think if you're in, a season-long fantasy league, I mean, you're thrilled he's back and you got to play him. I mean, there's no even if and or but about it because you've invested a lot of capital in him and you got to see what you got. As far as for DraftKings, I don't know that I'm willing to spend $8,000 on him this week when I don't know what his snap percentage is going to be. Because he's priced extremely high. He's the second highest priced running back up behind only Saquon Barkley at $8,300. And we all know the upside's there. I mean, especially if he's getting a full snap count. He scored a ton of touchdowns and he catches a ton of balls. He can do everything. But I mean, it's just been a weird year with that injury thing. And I just can't see him coming back getting 20, 25 carries. I think my expectation would be 10 to 12 carries and catch 4 to 6 balls and maybe get in the end zone. But I don't think you can expect any more than that.
Yeah, he gets a Bucs defense that gives the 6th highest yards per carry in the NFL at 4.9 yards per carry. Moody, how do you feel about CMC?
Well, I think what I would do right now is you still have Jordan Mason there who has been great between the tackles. I think you use him as your first and second down back and you work Christian McCaffrey back. And you know how good he is in the passing game. And that's one thing they have lacked a little bit without him is the ability to throw to running backs out of the backfield. And that made their offense very good. That's one of the things that makes a Shanahan offense very good is your ability to use your running backs in unique ways. And they didn't really have that with Mason. Been great between the tackles, but they need McCaffrey. And I think they'll work him back in, use him a lot on passing downs. I don't think the Tampa Bay defense is very good, so I could see him getting into the end zone in this game. I could just for them to work him back in, make him feel good, make the fans feel good once again, and reinvigorate this offense, because they've struggled a little bit the last few weeks, and they're suddenly in a real race in the NFC West. They need to win this game. I do think San Francisco is going to show up and play well, and I think Christian McCaffrey will be a piece of the puzzle. I just don't think he's going to be the entire puzzle in his first week of return.
Yeah, I like you guys. I'm not going to buy him, especially at $8,000 for daily fantasy. No thanks. Let's see what he develops into. I think if you're in some type, for fantasy playoffs, I think he could be an absolute difference maker. And this is a huge game this week for the Niners against the Bucs. The Bucs 4-5, the Niners 4-4. That whole NFC West is a total logjam. So he could be competing for a wild card against the Bucs, in which case, this is a pressing game for them to win. So I wouldn't be surprised to see his usage be a little bit higher than we expect, but it's such an unknown right now. It'd be tough to buy into that. All right, let's move into the DFS positions and go over pricing. So let's start with the quarterbacks. Top of the markets, Jalen Hurts going against Cowboys. Or actually, hold on. Let's start with the overall games and just totals.
Yeah, and I have one thing I want to bring up real quick too. So Stool Viver round 2 has been going on, where you pick a touchdown scorer, and every week you try to advance. I won the long shot one with Taysom Hill at plus 170 last week, so I have a $500 free bet on the Sunday stream. I have to use it on a touchdown score. The prices aren't out on touchdown guys yet, but just strategy-wise, do y'all have any thoughts on it? My initial instincts, got to take somebody plus money. I don't think this is a spot where you take anybody like McCaffrey or any like Saquon, anybody that's minus 150 to try to win 300 or 400. Like, I'm going to try to take a plus money guy and try to win 800 or 1,000, I think is the move.
So I would personally, and we did this last week with King of the Court winnings. We got a sizable free bet and we parlayed it and tried to swing for the fences, because you don't get these opportunities that often, and it's found money basically. You can turn it into $500, which is certainly a very good sum and something that I feel like almost anyone would be happy with. But you could also swing for the fences and go for one of these ones they're going to post about on social. And I'm not saying do like a 10-leg parlay, but if you feel good about 2 or 3 guys and you like maybe one long shot, I wouldn't mind throwing that in to do 500 to win $5,000, something like that.
I don't hate that though, because like even winning $500, yeah, it's great, but it doesn't like change your situation.
Yes, exactly.
And
that's
like why not? Plus for the stream and everything.
Yeah.
Why not try to win 5 or 10K? So, initially, I'm looking at plus money guys. I mean, I used Taysom Hill last week. Look, until they put his price down to below plus 150, when Derek Carr starts and the Saints can actually score points, he's plus 180 every week. All they got is him and Kamara. He scored 2 touchdowns in the first half against Atlanta in the first game this year too. So, I mean, I'm looking at him as one of them for sure. Yet again, he got me here, and I don't see why he doesn't have another good chance to score. But I got to come up with somebody, some other people. But it's the only thing with it is the prices aren't out yet. So that's as far as we can go at this point.
Yeah. Or you can do Taysom Hill. That's the one that brought you.
No, I'm definitely going to go him. The question is if I go anyone else. I don't know that James Conner's odds will be very good against the Jets, but I think we'll get to him in a minute. But the Jets' run defense has been crappy all year.
All right, let's get into the games this week. So we have a Thursday night game, which is the highest scoring game of the week. That's not going to be in the standard DFS, but that's a 52.5 game. If we're looking at and there's also an early game, a Germany game, which we're not going to include, Giants-Panthers. That's a 41.5 game. If we're looking at all the games in the classic view, which is, the standard 1 and 4s, we do not have a high scoring game. The highest scoring projected game is Bucs-Niners at 47.5. But we have a lot of games in the low 30s. We even got some in the in the low 40s. A couple in the high 30s. We got New England, Chicago at 39.5, Tennessee, LA Chargers at 37.5. So this isn't a very favorable, explosive points week expected to be. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the pricing of the quarterbacks. Most expensive, Jalen Hurts, $7,800 against Dallas. Josh Allen, $7,700. Jaden Daniels, $7,500. Falls off quite a bit after that. The next highest one is Kirk Cousins at $67,000. Mahomes, $6,600. Brock Purdy in the highest projected total at $65,000. Goes all the way down to both Mason Rudolph and Will Levis valued the same at 4,900. Who do you fall in line with the quarterbacks this week, Mincy?
My theory I'm going with is you just mentioned how there aren't any huge over-unders. I think the sneaky game that can get wild is Buffalo-Indy in that dome. I think that one could. It's 46.5, and Joe Flacco had a really bad game on Sunday night against the Vikings defense that's very good. He's $5,500 this week. I think he's going to throw for a lot of yards against the Bills, and this one gets kind of wild. So that is my bargain quarterback pick is Flacco at 5,500. I actually think he could have a good game against Buffalo.
Yeah, I think if you want to allocate funds to it, I do think Josh Allen is a good value at or a good play at $7,700. They don't have a lot of weapons. Amari Cooper right now is questionable. Keon Coleman right now is questionable. So this is a guy who puts a lot of the offense on himself, and in a game that could get wild, that certainly is an option. Ones I'd also consider, Russell Wilson at $5,900, I think is decent value. And I hate to say it, and I hate betting on the Jets just because they are such a miserable team to watch, especially on offense. But Aaron Rodgers at $5,700, I could see that game getting a little funky against the Cardinals, a stadium where he's obviously had a lot of success. Moody, who do you like in the quarterback market?
Number one for me is going to be Brock Purdy at 6,500 against Tampa Bay. I know I just still don't think they're a great defense. They're giving up points. They're one of the bottom 5 teams as far as points scored this season. And I think it could be a breakout spot for Brock Purdy. Just the confidence of having Christian McCaffrey back in the backfield. Like I said earlier, I think they're going to throw him the football in this game. And I think that's going to open up things on the outside. I think Kittle could have a pretty solid game in this one as well. I'm just expecting the bounce back to start for Brock Purdy. This is a great game for it, and it honestly better happen as far as San Francisco is concerned. So I'm expecting a pretty good showing here for Brock Purdy at 6,500. And the other guy that I liked a little bit, I don't like that Olave's not there, but it's Carr for 5,300 against Atlanta. That could end up being a shootout potentially, and that's some value. I'll probably end up going with Purdy in this spot, but as far as dumpster diving, I think Carr may have a little value this week.
My concern is who's he throwing the ball to? It's rough sledding out there for Derek Carr, but no, I like the Saints big this week. All right, running backs, we got Saquon Barkley, top of the market, $8,300. Alvin Kamara, $81,000. Christian McCaffrey, as we mentioned, $8,000. Falls off a bit after that. Bijan Robinson, $7,700. Breece Hall, $76,000. Jonathan Taylor, $75,000, and so on. You can go all the way down to, Ty Chandler is $4,200. Jaleel McLaughlin, $45,000. So we got some lower tier guys kind of in the 4,000 range. How do you feel about the top of the market guys? Is this a week with lower projected totals that you buy in heavier on running backs? Where do you see this, Mincy?
I'm going Saquon Barkley at 8,300 because I've seen enough out of this Dallas run defense to where I just think the floor is so high because they get freaking gashed every single week. And I also think game flow wise, Philly should be leading with Cooper Rush going, and so I think they're going to be running the football. So I know 8,300 is a crazy amount to spend on a player, but I don't see how he doesn't have a good game. I just don't see how it's possible. And we've said it for a long time too that the games at Dallas kind of tend to get a little higher scoring.
Yep. At $8,300, he's the second most expensive player. Third most expensive player in the classic view behind Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's hard to envision Saquon not having a good game. Are there any other lower tier guys that you're looking at, or you're just kind of sticking top of the market for running backs?
My number 2 running back this week I'm going with, he's not lower tier, but I love James Conner at 6,500 because the Jets run defense also just stinks. I mean, I've been watching it all year. They just get gashed up front. And Arizona's got a pretty sneaky running game with Kyler Murray with the running threat. I saw Connor just gashing the Bears last week, and I think he's in a spot to have a huge game on Sunday. And so I'm spending a lot of money running back, $8,300 and $6,500, but I just love both those guys. I really like Connor this week.
Yeah. Moody, who do you got?
So my number one guy, I understand Saquon. I'm going to give you something slightly different here in this situation. What about Kenneth Gainwell at 4,100? Because Dallas might just flat out give up in this game. Saquon's got a little bit of a back issue. I'm not saying Saquon's not going to have a massive first half. I do think he's going to explode in this game. But if you're looking for some serious value where you could save some money, what about Gainwell? He had his, I believe, the most snaps that he's had the entire season last week, or second most, if I'm not mistaken. And I just think it's a spot where if you're up 20 plus, Why use your star running back in the fourth quarter? I think Gainwell might get into the end zone in this game. That's my super deep dumpster dive. I'm not sure that I'm going there, but I do kind of like that. Another guy that I was looking at was DeAndre Swift. I believe he's at 6,500 against New England. New England's just not very good against the run. And we saw Chicago last week. I was kind of in on the Bears. The passing attack did not look good. I think their best path to victory is running the football with Swift. And Swift's had a great season. He just didn't have a great last week. I think it's a pretty good bounce back spot for him. I like him at 6,500. And then honestly, all the other guys that I would like are at the top. I mean, it's Alvin Kamara. It's Jonathan Taylor. Question is, am I going to spend that money in that spot? That's something I really haven't decided yet, guys.
Yeah. I am of similar ilk. I like Kamara. I like DeAndre Swift. I think Aaron Jones is another one to consider. The Jags give up the third most receiving yards to running backs in the NFL. We've seen Aaron Jones be a very dangerous receiver. They're also giving up 4.7 yards per carry. But a number I really like, they're giving up 1.3 touchdowns to opposing running backs per week. Aaron Jones certainly with a nose for the goal line. But yeah, I really like Kamara this week. I think this is a big bounce back spot. He's one of the leaders on the team. You kind of saw in that press conference after the informal one at like his locker where they asked him kind of what the issue was with the Saints, and he was saying how, they got the players, but it's something else. And then, you see Dennis Allen let go. So I think this is a huge game for Kamara. He's had 100 plus total yards in 5 of his last 6 games. Against Atlanta, he's had 110 total yards plus in 6 of 9 games this season, averaging 114 yards per game. So I think this is a big spot for Alvin Kamara. Bounce back off of, he had a very productive game, but against the Panthers, obviously a big loss. And yeah, DeAndre Swift, I'm completely on board with. The Pats give the second most rushing yards to opposing running backs in the NFL at just under 125 yards a game. And yeah, this is a perfect bounce back spot for him. I'm interested to see what happens with the offense as far as, obviously, Shane Waldron's calling plays. They did look really bad last week. DJ Moore walked off the field mid-play during a Caleb Williams scramble with maybe an injury. Let's see what comes out. We're taping this Wednesday morning, so we don't have the injury reports as of yet. But is DJ Moore going to play? Is he healthy? Is he giving it everything he has? That is something to monitor. And however it is, the Bears should beat the Patriots fairly handily, so I think they're going to salt the game away with DeAndre Swift, who should also be a factor in getting that lead in the first place. So I really like him this week. All right, wide receivers.
One other running back to mention because it's a buck. I thought Rachaad White at 5,900 looked kind of value-y.
The Bucs running back situation is interesting because I think I would define it as this. Rachaad White also maybe got a little bit of a bump because he's from the Kansas City area. He said in his presser after that they were trying to get him involved in the game. And I think that was a big reason for it. Rachaad White is their best by far pass blocking back and pass catching back. That's almost not even an argument at this point. Bucky Irving, I think, got benched towards the end of that game because he missed a blitz pickup. That was a pretty important one. Rachaad White does not miss those blitz pickups. Rachaad White is going to be in the game, I would expect, on every single third down, and I think he's going to catch passes. Running the ball, Bucky Irving is our most explosive runner. He's a one-cut guy. He does have a turf toe issue that he is managing, and he had in college and apparently can deal with it. And he looked fine on Monday. I don't think he had a particularly good game, but he was fine. Our best between the tackles runner is Sean Tucker, and he is valued at 4,700. I think there are worse plays you can make than Sean Tucker this week. It's going to depend, and they've said this openly, they're going to ride the hot hand, but I think running the football, Sean Tucker is going to be your most consistent guy. I think Bucky's going to have probably the longest run of the game, but he's also going to have some that are stuff to the line. I think Sean Tucker is going to be a consistent guy. And Rachaad White could get, I think the goal line work is honestly going to be dependent on whose series it is, because they do alternate series, or if it's third down, Rachaad White's going to be in there. But I think Sean Tucker is a decent value at 4,700. All right, let's talk about receivers. We mentioned the low-scoring weeks, but we got some expensive, or the low-scoring totals. We got some expensive wide receivers. Justin Jefferson, 8,800. CeeDee Lamb, 8,600. A.J. Brown, who is questionable right now, 8,200. Devontae Smith, $7,800. Pretty penny there. Terry McLaurin, 7,300. Garrett Wilson, 7,200. Devontae Adams, 7,000. It falls off by the hundreds after that with Deebo Samuel, George Pickens, Drake London, who's questionable at this point. You can go all the way down to, there are some really low tier guys at $3,000. You're looking at Trent Sherfield Jr., Tyquan Thornton, Devon Vele from Denver, $3,400. Is there anyone that stands out to you here, Mincy, in the receiver market? I know we talked about one of them already.
Well, at the top, it's Justin Jefferson because Jacksonville's pass defense stinks. But I'm having to go bargain hunting because I just spent so much on Saquon and James Conner. I'm riding stack with Flacco cheap at quarterback and Josh Downs. He's been looking really good. He's explosive. He catches a lot of chunk plays, and he's 6,200.
Yep.
So, and I think that game's kind of sneaky, going to be high scoring. So that was kind of one of my guys that I'm looking at. Other guys I like, we mentioned DeAndre Hopkins. Look, I know everybody's going to have him because the price is cheap, but 5,300, like, come on, man. I mean, that's going to be like 6,500 or 7K in the next couple of weeks with his target share. So I just, even if he's going to be high owned, I don't see how you could not take him at 5,300. I just don't. It just doesn't make sense. And then my third call, there were a couple options. We're taping this on Wednesday, so we don't know the Amari Cooper situation yet. He was out last week. If he's out, Shakir is a good play. Had a good game last week, got some targets.
Yep.
But I'm going Darnell Mooney, who played at Tulane, going back to to NOLA. He catches a lot. The thing with him,
his price went up quite a bit this week.
He's 6,500, but he catches a lot of chunk plays, man. He gets those 20, 25-yard shots, and it seems like he's able to pile up yardage pretty easily in that offense. And him being, a Tulane guy, I feel like he could have a good game in that Falcons Saints game.
Yep. Moody, who you got for receivers?
So one of my top guys, I do agree with about Justin Jefferson and whatnot, but I'll give you a couple different answers here. Brian Thomas Jr. against the Vikings. Jacksonville should be playing from behind in the second half of that game. And one thing about Minnesota, they give up a ton of yards. They get takeaways to kind of make up for that, but they give up a ton of yards. Brian Thomas Jr. has been great this season. He's the number one target for Trevor Lawrence. I like Brian Thomas Jr. at 6,600. Khalil Shakir against Indianapolis is someone I like as well. He has kind of solidified himself as the number one target for Josh Allen. You guys were saying you expect Allen to have a big week. He's someone that I would expect to step up in that spot. And then I mentioned Brock Purdy. I think this is a spot for Deebo Samuel to have his game of the season. Deebo has been kind of irrelevant this year from a fantasy standpoint overall. He has had a game or two here and there, but I think this is a spot where he breaks out. I really like Deebo Samuel at 6,900. And then the other people that I'm wondering about here are the Saints wide receivers against Atlanta. I just don't necessarily know who it's going to be that Derek Carr is going to throw the football to. I think Mintz may have a slightly better idea on that. I was looking at Marquez Valdez-Scantling at 3,900, but we'll see. There's not a lot of trust there, but that's kind of my dumpster dive guy.
All right, I like it for receivers this week. I don't think you spend money on receivers this week. I think this is a big week to spend on quarterbacks, running backs, even tight end if you feel inclined, but I don't see a lot of value towards the top of the receiver market. Like Justin Jefferson, certainly, but I mean, he's $8,800. That's the most expensive player by far. CeeDee Lamb at $8,600 is hurt and has Cooper Rush playing. A.J. Brown at $8,200 also is hurt. Devontae Smith, $7,800 is really expensive. So I'm not liking the top of the market at all. I think Downs is a solid play. I'm interested to see the injury status of Keon Coleman, who had kind of a wrist thing last week. DeAndre Hopkins, we mentioned $5,300. I think you almost have to play him almost in every format. Some cheaper guys that I'm keeping an eye on, a couple of them. So we got Rome Odunze, $5,200. Jordan against the Patriots. We got Jordan Addison going against the same Jags defense. I think he had 5 catches for like 43 yards and a touchdown, something in that range this past week. But they had mentioned in pressers, like, we need to get him the ball. We're not going to force it to him, but the ball should go where it needs to go, and it should go to him fairly often. So Jordan Addison is one I would look out for. Some even cheaper guys, Troy Franklin with Denver, 4,000. I think in a game against KC where I would anticipate they're going to need to throw and be from behind, Kansas City's defense outside or cornerbacks outside of Trent McDuffie, not very good. So Troy Franklin, a guy that Bo Nix obviously has chemistry with from Oregon, $4,000, and he has been coming on as of late. And then Raheem Jarrett, we mentioned, previous conversation, $3,600. I think of the Bucs receivers, The Bucks have San Francisco, then they have a bye, and they're going to be play the Giants. Mike Evans is expected back for that game. I think if you're going to take a Bucks wide receiver, I think Raheem Jarrett is the best value at $3,600, even though we saw Sterling Shepard have a better game, was at $4,100. That is one I would consider. He's a bigger body, so I would look for potentially an end zone target from him. But Raheem Jarrett, he caught a big first down on Monday night, is a decent play. Big body guy in Tampa.
I have one more cheap one I like. Quentin Johnson's $4,900. He was out a couple weeks. He came back, caught a long touchdown last week against Cleveland.
Yep.
He was hurt a few weeks, but when he's played, he's kind of had some value this year. He's caught some touchdowns. He catches some long ones. Him and McConkey are the only real receivers you can count on that offense. They're playing Tennessee at home. It's a low over-under at 37.5, but I feel like he's got some value just being that cheap when he's healthy.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to tight ends. Top of the market's Travis Kelce off his bajillion catch game, $6,000. George Kittle going against my Bucks, $5,800. Trey McBride, who's starting to come on, $5,700. Cade Otton, who's been very hot, $55,000. Evan Ingram, $53,000. Then we go to Jake Ferguson at $5,000. It falls after that all the way down to Nick Vannett, who caught a touchdown at $2,600 this week. Mincy, who do you like in the tight end market?
Not a surprise, but I'm going back to the Taysom Hill well at $4K. He was my plant your flag guy last week. Saints, all they got's him and Kamara. That's all they got. Yeah. He's going to be playing a ton. It's Atlanta. It's a rivalry game. He had 2 touchdowns in the first half against Atlanta before he got hurt in the first matchup. He got in the end zone last week. He's getting carries. They're throwing the ball to him. 4,000. I think he finds the end zone again, and he's going to be a huge part of the game plan. So we ride.
All right. Moody, who do you like in the tight end market?
I actually have 4 tight ends that I like, and I'm going to pick 2 of the 4. I'm going to put one of them in my flex this week. Number 1 is Taysom Hill. Mintz and I were both on it last week. He's that guy for me at tight end. He will be in my tight end slot. The other 3 that I'm going to decide between, and I think number 1 on the list for me is Dalton Kincaid against Indianapolis. Kincaid, a lot of hype on him coming into the season. He has not met expectations, but Indianapolis is not good against tight ends. I think this is a spot where Dalton Kincaid gets into the end zone and has a really good game. Number 2 on that list for me is Kittle. I talked about Purdy earlier. I think Kittle's going to be reliable for him in this game. And then the other one that I think is really sneaky here, he's 4,800. He has been very hit or miss, is Kyle Pitts, because the Saints were getting gashed by tight ends early on in the season. They've been a little better the last couple of weeks, but they were getting smoked by tight ends for like 5 straight weeks. I think Kyle Pitts could have another big game. He just had one 2 weeks ago. I think he could have not quite that big of a game, but could definitely be viable at 4,800 on the tight end market.
Okay, I like that. A couple tight ends that I like. So Taysom Hill, we all mentioned. Tyler Conklin, I think, is a potential to be kind of a sneaky value here in a game that I think could get a little wild against Arizona. One I also like is Hunter Henry, who's been pretty hot. He's had at least 5 targets in 4 straight games. He's averaging his line typically is like 6.59. That 6 catches, 59 yards. That's kind of what he's averaging. 23 catches for 234 and a touchdown over that 4-week span. He's one that tight end is a young quarterback's best friend. So I think you could certainly do worse than Hunter Henry at $3,900, who always has that touchdown upside. All right, let's move on to defense and special teams. This is a pretty big range this week. We got the Chargers topping off at $3,800. It goes down by hundreds here, but we got the Vikings, the Chiefs, the Eagles going against Cooper Rush, the Falcons, the Niners, Bills. We go all the way down to bottom of the market is Denver going against KC and Dallas. Who do you guys like? Mincy, we'll start with you.
Went bargain shopping for the New England Patriots at only $2,500 with how much Caleb Williams is struggling.
Okay.
Just saving money.
Sure.
That's the best matchup of the cheap ones.
Okay. I don't mind that. Moody, who do you like?
I think the Eagles are the right play here. I think Dallas is just going to lay down in this game. Personally, as the Cowboys fan, I expect them to not show up, and I think the Eagles are going to steamroll them. So I'm probably going to spend the money on Philadelphia at $3,500. If I don't go there, one that's sneaky, and this could bite me in the ass, is the Pittsburgh Steelers against Washington. Pittsburgh's defense is just so good. Nobody's going to be on this, I feel like, because the Washington offense has been so good. But I think Pittsburgh will probably give Jaden Daniels his toughest test of the entire season. I think Pittsburgh may win this game outright. I think the Steelers defense will be the reason why. I am expecting the worst game of the season from Jaden Daniels. So I do like Pittsburgh at 3K, but I'm probably going to be on Philadelphia, to be honest.
Yeah, Philly $3,500 certainly against Cooper Rush. Potentially injured CeeDee Lamb. We'll see how effective he can be. A running game that is non-existent would be a kind way to say it. I like that. A couple I would point out, New Orleans, $2,800. I know they're going against Atlanta, division game, but I think this is a huge, we just fired our coach. Everyone hated the coach. Like, the defense is going to step up. Even bum-ass Cam Jordan with no sacks in his last 16 games crying on Twitter how they should be better. You should be better, Cam. You should be better. A couple, or one that I'm not afraid of. Bottom of the market, Denver Broncos, $2,400
I actually think you like that.
Going against the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes did not have an interception last week. It was his first time in 7 games he did not have an interception. So Denver is a defense that is sneaky. They can get after the passer. They can defend. They've got some very good cornerbacks. Obviously, Patrick Surtain, the second, leading the way there. But they're a sneaky defense. And at $2,400, I know they're going against the Chiefs, who have the reputation for being the best offense in football, but they're not. That you could do worse there. I'm just saying. And that's if you need to skim. I would much rather take New Orleans at $2,800 or Philadelphia at $35. I would much rather do that. But could be worse. All right, let's go plant your flag guy of the week. Mincy, let's start with you. Coming off, you had Taysom Hill last week?
Yes, I had Taysom Hill last week, and I know you've been super hot in the plant your flag guy. This is I know it's a guy I already mentioned. You'd always do a good job of saving it for the very end. I'm telling you, this James Conner thing this week. I've seen this Jets run defense. It is freaking it's been awful since Jordan Mason gashed him game 1. Mm-hmm. Joe Mixon was running up and down the field against them last week. They do have a good pass defense. And I've seen this Arizona running game. It is sneaky, really good because you have to account for Kyler Murray. And I've seen them gashing people. I think Conner over 100 and maybe a touchdown or 2. So I really, really like him against the Jets. I think this is a game where maybe you see Arizona throw less and run more.
All right. Moody, who you got?
I've been trying to decide between Debo and Brian Thomas Jr. I think they're both going to be in my lineup here, but I like Debo. I think this is the breakout game of the season for Debo against Tampa Bay. I think him and Brock Purdy are both going to show up in this game. I'm expecting a bit of a shootout. Tampa Bay's offense, even without their top 2 wide receivers, I think they're still going to be competitive in this game. They're going to make San Francisco work for the win. I think that's going to lead to a good game for Debo. I'm expecting a breakout performance from Debo Samuel this week against the Buccaneers. I'm taking him at 6,900 as my plant your flag guy of the week.
Okay. I certainly hope you're wrong on that as a Bucs fan, but I can see it. It's tough because I don't want to be the chalk guy. Last week I gave out Devon Achane, who had a tremendous game, scored a couple times, 8 catches I think. He was catching the ball like crazy last week. I mean, technically it's Alvin Kamara, but I don't want to do that. I'm gonna give another one just because that's too expensive. But like, I'm centering my lineup this week around Alvin Kamara. Like, this is an Alvin Kamara week. Monster week last week. They just fired the coach. A lot of it is his doing. Like, he's obviously very vocal, not liking the coach. This is a division game. I expect New Orleans to blow out the Falcons, and I think Alvin Kamara is going to be the lead of that. I'm going to get a little twofer here. Main plant your flag guy. I'm going to go DeAndre Swift. Talked about it. New England just cannot stop the run. He had a very bad game last week. So I expect, or I don't want to say a very bad game. I think he had like 82 total yards. But he was not certainly the DeAndre Swift we had seen over the past couple weeks. So I am wagering that DeAndre Swift is going to have a very strong week. This week against the Patriots defense, again, gives them the second most rushing yards to opponents, to opposing running backs in the NFL. A little bonus I would give out, same team, Cole Kmet, who's coming off a 0 target, 0 catch game. I think it's going to be very obvious that they need him. We don't know the status of DJ Moore at this moment, which is why I'm pausing on making him my official guy. Officially, I'm going with DeAndre Swift, playing your flag guy of the week. But Cole Kmet, like, don't be too surprised if he has a monster game. He has a 10-catch game this season. Once we figure out what the health is of DJ Moore, that could make him more of an automatic play. But the Patriots give up the, I believe it's the ninth most receiving yards, or ninth most catches, or no, sorry, ninth highest yards per catch to opposing tight ends. I think Cole Kmet could go off this week against New England. So all right, that's it for the King of the South. Mincy, Moody on the Sticks. I am Stephen Shea. Good luck this week setting your lineups. Make sure to join us in the Pardon My Take AWL DFS League on DraftKings, and we'll see you in the winner's circle, I guess.